The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like expecting the leadership of a team captain on the football field, but getting a sea captain. You wouldn't settle for just anything for your team. Shouldn't it be the same for your insurance? So don't settle for just any insurance when you can go with a leader. State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Heather is a nurse practitioner from United Healthcare.
We meet patients wherever they live.
During a house call, she found Jack had an issue.
Jack's blood pressure was dangerously high.
It was 217 over 110.
So they got Jack to the hospital and got him the help he needed.
He had had a stent placed in his heart, preventing a massive heart attack.
If it wasn't for my guardian angel, I wouldn't be here.
Hear more stories like Jack's at unitedhealthcare.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan, area, limitation, and exclusions apply.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How the podcast as you join us just moments after a fantastic away performance that sees the lads pick up our first point on the road this season against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. So to help me get a quick match reaction, we first have up, we've got Gav and Henderson with us. Sorry, Gav.
Yeah, mate, very, very good after watching that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to get into it, but that was about as happy as I think I could have been, given some of the moments in the game and stuff. Really happy to escape with a clean sheet. I think we deserved it.
Yeah, just perfect away performance for me. And the other voice we've got on today, we've got Jonny Hawley. Hello, Jonny.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Gav. I'm happy after the result, but I tell you what, that last 4 minutes probably took about 10 years off my life, I reckon.
Well, we both did the preview. Didn't you not predict it being goalless, Jonny?
No. I was in one of my rare moments of depression. I predicted a loss.
That was me.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Right. I would have never thought it. But you haven't been right for a while, Gav. But like we said on the preview, Gav, snapped your hand off for a draw, and that's what we got.
Yeah, and I think we fully deserved it. Yes, Palace probably in the end had the better chances, but you've got to front them chances up. And if you make saves and you defend really well and you come out of the game with a clean sheet, then you fully deserve that point, as much as the other team might have deserved a point from the amount of chances they made. I'm sure I haven't heard what Glasner's had to say yet because it's so quickly after full time. But he's probably going to moan about the referee because their fans were whinging about him. He's probably going to moan about the fact that they had all of the chances and the typical stuff. He's going to make excuses for the fact that his team weren't able to put the ball away. But I just came away from that thinking this pretty much the same as I have after virtually every game this season, which is that we look like a proper Premier League side. We don't look like a shell-shocked Championship team who've just came up, don't quite know what they've got themselves into by getting promoted into the Premier League like we were told would be the case by fans of clubs who'd been here in the last couple of years and had said it's so difficult in the Premier League. I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult, but we look completely ready for the challenges of this league. And we were talking about it on the preview, Crystal Palace have the best unbeaten run in the country at the minute. I think that stretches now to, is it 15 games or 14 games after today? Can't remember exactly what that figure is, but it's some
15 now in all competitions.
Yeah, and is it 10 in the Premier League, something like that?
Yeah, so, I think so. It was 9 Prem before the game.
Yeah. So to get a clean sheet is an absolutely brilliant result away from home, and especially when you look at the fact that other teams who are probably going to struggle lost today. It's certainly a point gained, and I think it's such a massive result because it shows we can do it on the road.
Yeah, and I mean, Jonny, one thing we said on that preview pod, we were saying at the end that I predicted a 2-1 defeat, but I agreed with what Gav said when he was saying he predicted that we'd actually have a good performance and we'd go there and play well. And actually, I think that's the biggest thing to have come out of this, other than the point, of course, which we're going to be totaling up at the end of the season. We're going to be glad of it, I'm guessing. But it's the fact that we've gone away to a Crystal Palace side who we've said have been so impressive and are impressive, and we've gone there and matched them up.
Yeah, and Gav kind of touched on this a minute ago as well. There are going to be plenty of teams in this league this season go to Selhurst Park and put in worse displays and come out with worse results than we just have today, which should be, a real positive sign to the rest of the fan base that we're, like Gav says again, we're here to do business. We're not here to just, we're in the Premier League. It's only going to be a year and then we're back in the Championship and we'll bank a load of money. That was a team performance today that was determined, gritty, defensively incredibly resilient. And on another day, look, obviously Crystal Palace had the better of the chances the way the game panned out. But on another day, there were 2 or 3 times that Isidore particularly was just, the ball wasn't quite falling for him in the right places in the box. And there was that chance. I mean, I know we'll talk about everything in detail in a minute, but that chance Talby had in the first half, on another day, we easily could have nicked a goal or two, just in the same way that they could. So to go away to a team who finished 12th last season and won a cup and put in a performance like that and come away with a point, I think should fill everybody with a load of confidence, because that is a proper established Premier League team and we did not look out of place at all. And, again, we'll get into everything in more detail, I'm sure, but Robin Roefs, by the way, deserves absolutely tremendous credit today.
Yeah, we'll obviously come back onto that, those big moments. But I'm just looking at the early headlines, Gav, and just based on what Jonny just said, the early headline, I'm reading the first paragraph or the first sentence on the BBC's report, and it said Crystal Palace were held to a frustrating goalless draw by newly promoted Sunderland at Selhurst Park. Doesn't really do us justice, but just the start of the game in that first half, Gav, I thought was a proper game of cat and mouse, and I just in that first half, there was nothing between either side, and we'll talk about the chances. But in terms of keeping the ball, at times I thought we looked the better side.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think we were we were handy in possession without being particularly incisive from an attacking perspective, and I would say the same about Palace. And we did hear, didn't we, from Kevin Day before the game that they tend to struggle against teams who sit in and play with a low block. The guy on the website that we interviewed for Fan Focus said the exact same thing. So I think it was going to be a case of both teams trying to just see what the other were going to do without really taking risks. I think ultimately we just weren't prepared to take any risks, and I think that's completely fine as a away team. You go away from home against a tough opponent, you would be foolish to try and dive in two-footed too early. I think we maybe got caught doing that a couple of times against Burnley and got made to pay for it. And maybe we've learned from having done that. But in this game, it was, you're right, a game of cat and mouse, and two teams who didn't really want to force it too much. And when I sat down at half time, I was over the moon really that we'd kind of gone in with gone in goalless, and I thought, well, second half's going to be a different game, isn't it? The longer it goes on at 0-0, Palace are going to get frustrated. They're going to start throwing people forward. They're going to make attacking changes. And what we had to do was just stick to the game plan, stay resolute, don't leave gaps when possible. And if we do get chances, take them. I think today we didn't really get that many chances, and it wasn't because we weren't trying to create chances. I just think the way the game was, we had to sit and be patient. And there were one or two, and I'm sure Palace fans will sit back and say the same thing. They'll be the more frustrated fan base by a mile. So frustrating draw is probably an accurate description, but I suppose it's difficult in 70 or so characters, isn't it, to give the full picture of the game. Sunderland, I think everybody watching the game back, the analysts and stuff, will say Sunderland deserved what they got, because you have to defend resolutely.
Well, that's it.
Home.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, look, it suggests frustrating in that kind of Palace were kind kind of hammering us. But Jonny, in terms of it saying frustrating goalless draw, it gives the impression that kind of Palace were all over us and loads of chances and all this sort of stuff. But actually, if you look at that again, look at that first half specifically, I mean, Palace didn't have a really good chance until 35 minutes. And I think before then, we had a few kind of half chances before then, and we looked more dangerous, I would say, until they just put that one ball behind. But actually, for the first half hour or so, I don't think Roefs had a touch of the ball and they didn't get in our box.
Yeah, and particularly the first 20 minutes especially, I thought we looked really, really comfortable, to be honest. You know, we were knocking the ball about nicely, even at the back at times, which has not really been a feature of Lebris's teams, has it? You know, we've not tended to have those extended spells of possession where we're just sort of, you know, going side to side and not really, you know, going direct or going too hell for leather. But I think it was the right move today in the context of the game to focus particularly early on in just, you know, feeling our way in, making sure that we don't give anything silly or sloppy away. And there was still the odd moment. Alderete particularly, I thought, he played well, but he had a few kind of harem-scarum moments, you know, where things were just, you know, being left in the hands of fate a little bit too much for my liking. But no, aside from that, I think, yeah, first 20 especially, I thought we were the better side. Without threatening, I thought we were better. And then even that chance that you mentioned on about 35 minutes for Palace, It was a superb ball through, don't get us wrong. But even that kind of just came from the ball kind of breaks loose and then they just sort of seize the initiative quicker than we do. It wasn't a long flowing move that broke us down, if you know what I mean. It was just one of those where the space just happens to open for a second and they put the perfect ball in, and obviously thankfully the lads put it wide. But yeah, I thought first half in general was even, if not shaded by us. So I was certainly happy at half time.
Yeah, and you looked at our tactics, Gav, and our style and what we were trying to do. I mean, maybe you're right. We were trying to frustrate Palace because Robin Roefs, when he got his foot on the ball, was actually waiting until Palace were almost right on top of us for the press, and we were trying to knock it over the top. But Jonny's kind of right in terms of that first chance that they had just after the half hour, where it was just that ball out of nothing, brilliant pass through. And, you know, you could argue Mukiele was a bit out of position, and I think Alderete are getting dragged out a little bit so that they had a bit of space to get in behind. But again, this was kind of the start of Roof's afternoon, really, because the way he was out, so I think he'd spotted it even before the back forward spotted it, that ball through, and he was out so quickly that actually it looked like an easy chance, but he closed down the angle so quickly that actually he didn't have much time to get his shot off.
There was a couple of things with that move. When I watched it initially, and I haven't really seen much of it back, I thought Alderete got dragged to Mateta a bit too easily, which opened up the room for the pass. It was a good pass, though, and that's the quality that's in the Premier League, isn't it? You know, you make one mistake, you switch off, you could be punished. And luckily for us, we've got a top-class goalkeeper. I think I'm ready to say that even after 4 or 5 games. Robin Roefs he's brilliant. I mean, the lad, can I just say once again, by the way, he's played 1 full season of first team football, that kid. How good's he gonna be? Never mind how good's he now. But this isn't me, I don't want to drag Patterson, but when you're trying to talk about how good Roefs is, you've got to compare him to the man he's replaced, I think, and try and weigh it up. And there was always times with Patterson where I felt like he was either glued to his line or he came out far too late. He never seemed to get that balance right when it came to that decision making. Roefs was right off his line, but he didn't go down early. He made himself big, and it was the reason we didn't concede, because there wasn't anything else he could do. It wasn't like he could pounce on the ball or anything. He had to be patient, and that's something I've noticed with him is his concentration is unbelievable. He doesn't switch off for a minute. But yeah, I think you're right. It was the start of his afternoon. He was really on it, and I'm over the moon he's ours, like, because he's been in the games we've picked up points in, he's made a difference in all of them, I think. The only goal he's conceded in those games was against Brentford, and there was nothing he could do about it. It was a brilliant header. Otherwise, you know, he was fantastic and was fantastic again today.
Yeah. And I mean, Jonny, we talk about that chance. 5 minutes later, we had a cracking chance, even though it didn't really turn into a kind of a shot or a save or anything like this. But you saw Siddiqui and Adingra down that left-hand side, and Siddiqui was absolutely brilliant there, where he kind of worked with Adingra then, and Adingra beat his man, which is really good to see. I think he's building up a bit of confidence. And then a great cross and Talby at the back post. And I think there was some debate whether he could have taken it first time, but he tried to take it down and then get his shot off. But by that time, he was closed down and it was blocked. But this, again, we've talked about this team spirit and the way this team are going about things. It's easy then. Palace, could have gotten momentum after that chance and then pushed us back a little bit. But it was a great reaction to them having a good chance by us going forward and doing that.
It's exactly what you want to see, isn't it? You want to see a team with the mentality that can almost shrug off those moments of, indecision or whatever you want to call it at the back that can let other teams in. The worst thing you can do is dwell on it. The most important action in the game is the next action. And I thought we showed that really well today. And that chance in particular, look, let's just be honest. Talby has to hit it first time. If he wants to score, he's got to put his foot through it. But, obviously the lad's still kind of feeling his way into the Premier League and into Sunderland. And if I'm being generous, I might say he was possibly a little unsighted by the defender just in front of him. Maybe didn't expect the ball to drop where it did, but I thought the movement and the combinations between Siddiqui and Adingra, like you said, were brilliant. The best that we looked in this game going forward was every time the ball went down the left-hand side, I thought. Not to say that the lads on the right had bad games or anything, but there was a few moments where Siddiqui and Adingra in particular were just, knocking those little round-the-corner passes to each other just to take a defender out of play. And like you correctly say, Chris, as well, Adingra having the confidence to take people on and actually beat men, and then also back himself to put the deliveries into the box. That's massively important, because if he's going to have a good season, and we need him to, he's going to need to build up that confidence, and the best way to do it is by proving yourself on the pitch. So that was, obviously, we didn't score any goals from it, but it's a good sign, and hopefully that keeps developing.
Yeah, Gav, we had a few conversations after the Brentford game, and we've had a few this season talking about that left-hand side, and especially after the Brentford game, because it was Enzo Lefebvre and Ronaldo down that left, really kind of pushing on. This time, Ronaldo got forward a little bit, but not as much because we were away from home, but it was Siddiqui and Adingra down that left. And again, I had the feeling that we looked a little bit lopsided, and that, Talby and Hume on the right, we didn't seem to want to go out there as much.
Yeah. I don't know whether that was because we'd seen something from performances maybe when we were analysing Palace, that maybe they, I don't know, maybe that's where they focused their attacks, and we just didn't want to overload too much down there in case we got caught in behind. I think it was Munoz, wasn't it, their full-back or wing-back or whatever he was. He was their main outlet, really, with the ball. And, we just had to make sure we didn't leave any gaps. I think it's different away from home, isn't it? When you've got the home crowd behind you and you're piling forward and you've got that atmosphere generating, it naturally makes the away team step back. We've seen it this season, where it's very different when you're away from home. So nothing too much in it, really. I just think, especially with Lebris, I think first and foremost, his thought is to try and be a little bit more conservative, certainly early in games. I see it early, actually, for probably 75 minutes of a game. Then all of a sudden he'll just kick into gear, won't he? But no, nothing to read too much into it. I quite like, though, the way that Siddiqui got down that side. I think I've never seen that from him yet. I think this season he's mainly been that sort of protective cover in front of Xhaka, actually. Whereas today we saw a lot more from an attacking perspective, and there was that really well worked set piece routine. It was a free kick where we slipped him in. And I was just thinking, that was so good, but I wish it was someone who was naturally left-footed had been in that position, because you could see by his whole body shape and that he had to kind of really work hard just to fashion the opportunity to shoot, where if it comes naturally to you, you lash that one in probably, or at least on goal. But no, it was nice to see a different side of a couple of players today. I think even Ronaldo, because it felt to me like they were targeting him for some reason. It was sort of like, right, let's pin everything on their left back, and he swatted. I mean, he's quality, isn't he? We've said a lot about him already this season, but I love the way that, and you kind of expect this with experienced players, particularly ones who've played for top clubs, but he's just come in and it's like he's been there for 200 games. There's no hint of nerves or any sort of drop off in intensity because of his age or anything like that. He's a quality player. You get what I was about to say you get what you pay for, but not in this case with him. You know what I mean? They clearly realised at half time though that wasn't working because they then moved Pino. Is it Pino or Pina? I can't remember. They're number 10.
Pino,
he swapped sides because they'd realised like it's not working out there for him, and he did get probably a little bit more joy up against Hume. That's all credit to Ronaldo, wasn't it? I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, that's it. You mentioned the free kick routine. It was much better than the corner kick routine in the second half, which went very wrong.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that there. But,
I like the idea of it though, Chris.
Oh no,
like,
great idea. Just the execution was crap.
Yeah. Well, we're passing to Xhaka, wasn't it? But no, it was. You can say that is a point though, and probably one you're better off discussing tomorrow on the Sunday show when you've got a bit more time. Is you can see the set piece. We've employed like a proper set piece coach, haven't we now?
Yeah.
Proper top level one. And all right, they might not all come off, but we look like we know what we're doing and we're well drilled in what we're trying to do. And one of them will come off eventually, they will. And everyone will be going, bloody hell, look how well that was executed. But you kind of fault them for trying it.
No. As a scientist, I can tell you that Sundays are only 24 hours long. But with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get every game every Sunday all in one place. That's upwards of 30 hours of NFL in one day. How can there be 30 hours in 24 hours, you ask? I have a theory. Magic. New users get NFL Sunday Ticket for 8 payments of $34.50 per month. Sign up at NFLSundayTicket.com. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games and commercial use. Terms and embargoes apply. Availability varies.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Oh, we've got Tony Pulis working on our long throws as well. But the second half, I thought was much more open. Actually, compared to the first half, I thought both teams wanted to go for it after the break. First 5 minutes, Johnny, we had a half chance actually when Alderete played a great ball over the top and Isidore nearly got in, and it ended up at Talby. And I thought actually Talby kind of wasted an opportunity at the back post to kind of play it back into Isidore. Then 5 minutes later. I mean, again, this was probably Palace's top chance with that one in the first half. It was a switch to the left. Hume didn't really get out quick enough to the cross. Low cross in. What a save from Roefs to get down low at that near post. And then the follow-up. I mean, again, talking about team spirit, throwing themselves in front of it. Alderete just threw himself in. And the shot, it was about 10 yards out, hit him and went over the bar. But again, talking about the last 3 games, and we've mentioned it a few times, Johnny, that because we're competing, these games end up going one way or the other on these big moments. And the longer it stayed 0-0, the longer you thought, well, actually, all it's going to take is one moment to change this completely.
Yeah, in that period between probably sort of 50 to 75 minutes, the longer that went on, I was getting more and more convinced that if anyone was going to score, it'd end up being us, nicking one on the break. And there was, that half chance that you mentioned. There was another one where, again, Talby ended up with it on the right-hand side of the box and he laid it across. And then, was it Diarra, I think, ended up having a shot, sort of snatched at it a little bit with his left foot and it, went over
the bar.
Yeah. Which, it was a poor first touch, but I don't mean like it was bad from him. It was just one of those where you need that first touch to be perfect to work the chance. And it was, he was digging it out a bit from underneath himself. But there were those moments that were coming. Obviously, the flip side of that is down the other end of the pitch. You mentioned the Palace chance. There was also, I can't remember what minute it was. There was the one where, the ball came in low from the right-hand side. It took a deflection. It falls to Mateta. And then he forces yet another instinctive save out of Roefs, which, I'm not sure how much he actually knew about that one. But still, credit for being big and positioning himself.
I think that one was offside as well, wasn't it?
I thought that when I was watching it, but
Roefs started the game with a free kick, so I think it was given.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, it was an exceptional save from the keeper. And that's something I think, just to wax lyrical about Roefs for a minute again, something I've been so impressed with him in is his positioning. His positional sense is absolutely spot on. For such a young keeper, he just never seems to be in the wrong place. And everything that he does in terms of commanding the box, it's just fantastic. The way that he's authoritative, which I think must give the back four so much confidence. When you know that behind you, you've got a keeper who's willing to come out, who wants to get his hands on the ball and who's willing to play with it at his feet as well. And I think that confidence must have, well, it has, it's sort of transmitted up the pitch, because like I say, that sort of middle of the second half period, I did think there were certain passages of play where we looked really confident again, some one-touch passing. And there was, a couple of moves where it fizzled out a little bit because, somebody's accidentally put a bit too much on one of them, or he's played a pass 2 or 3 yards to the left or right than it should have been, which is, still to be expected from a team that's learning to play with each other. But yeah, I thought just from Roefs up the pitch, it kind of spread that feeling of, again, just like comfortability. There were even the moments where we were giving up chances and scrambling a bit to try and get back, like that Alderete block, which was a superb bit of last-ditch defending, but you don't want to have to be in that position. Even the chances we were giving away still weren't really coming from being carved open by Crystal Palace. There was, the odd lapse of concentration, maybe losing the ball where they shouldn't. But other than that, it was, individual moments of quality, like that pass in the first half from Palace, or just, getting the ball into the box and hoping that the sheer weight of numbers was going to do something for them. And, look, that's as valid a strategy of trying to score a goal as any. If the ball goes in the net, then it's a goal. But yeah, I thought that the way that we played for the majority of that second half, as well as most of the first half, was just, I'm going to say comfortable again, because that's all I could think when I was watching. I wasn't panicking until the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes, which is a different story. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. But Gav, just on what Jonny was saying there, I've got written down from around the 15 minutes between 50 minutes and about 65 minutes that we completely controlled the game. And I was so impressed with the fact that, there was no panic. We looked in complete control. At times, we pinned Palace in. And the impressive thing about this, every time they tried to break, Mukiele and Alderete were just, and Xhaka as well, were just all over it, kind of hounding the Palace players when we lost possession, getting it back, and then just keeping possession and controlling it. Okay, we didn't, as you said previously, we didn't really create much. But I tell you what, to go to a place like Palace and control a second half where they're desperate to get forward and get a goal, that's got to be a good sign moving forward, hasn't it?
Oh, you mentioned Mukiele there, by the way. He is absolutely fantastic. He's such a good player. He's got everything that you would want in a defender. Strong, quick, good on the ball, agile. Defensively switched on. He's got a bit of everything. And then he's got that long throw, which we're going to score from at some point. But it gives the other team something to think about, doesn't it? It's something that, to be honest, I can't remember Sunderland. Well, we did have a long throw specialist once, but he just never tried it, did he? Rory Delap. So I can't remember us ever being in that position. But I think it's a credit to particularly him, but also Alderete, that one of the best centre forwards in the league looked average today because he couldn't get near them. He's in Mukiele's back pocket. They want to make sure he gets him out of there before they fly back to the northeast. Because that'll be a canny bit extra weight on the plane, that one. He's a big fella. But you've got to say that we did control for that period. And we did so I go back to what I said right at the top of this. We look like a Premier League team. In that moment there, I'm watching that and I'm like, we are so not out of place here. We look every bit as, what's the word? we've got every right to be in the Premier League because we earned the right to be there, right? In the playoffs, we got promoted. That's why we're in the Premier League. But still, when you're there, you've then got to earn your right again to stay there. And when I'm watching us in these games, I'm like, we don't look like a promoted team. We look like a team who are quite comfortable at this level. And I know it's very early days. I'm not going to get ridiculously carried away by saying that. But it is promising, like, that you can go to it. Palace are outside of going away to Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Mags, probably. They're in that bracket, aren't they? They're like, especially at home. There's not many places in the league who've got that sort of intense home atmosphere where the crowd are noisy all the way throughout. It's an old-fashioned ground, so the stands are right on top of the pitch, and it's kind of got more of a championship feel about the ground, but it's in the Premier League, if you know what I mean. Like we've been to other places like Pompey and Kenilworth Road and stuff in the past to a lesser extent, which were like that. And them kinds of places are tough to play football in. So to keep your composure and control games when it's like that, and then against a quality of opponent like that, is commendable. And yeah, I mean, we were very good on the ball. And I think, to be honest, I don't know if you saw it, but there was that post the club put out before the game, and it was Granit Xhaka saying, we go again today, we're going there to win. That attitude, you do see that on the pitch from everybody. And he's the one he's orchestrating all of that. He is the leader on the pitch. And Granit Xhaka hasn't got this mentality that we've got as fans, that we're newly promoted, shit, we're going away from home against Crystal. I'd be over the moon with the point. He's like, it's Crystal Palace. Let's go and get a point. Let's go and get 3 points. And if we don't get 3 points, let's make sure we don't get beat. That's going to be the attitude going to all of these grounds this season. So I'm hoping that's the standard now. When we play somebody good away from home, we've shown how you do it. All right, if you're going to be nitpicky, we probably gave them too many opportunities and we had to rely on the goalkeeper a bit. But I think that's part and parcel of being the away team, going to a decent team. You are going to concede chances and you're going to have to rely on your keeper and your defence.
Yeah. But that's a reason for buying a good keeper, isn't it? Basically in the Premier League. But Jonny, just quickly, 20 minutes to go. We saw the first of Brian Brobby in a Sunderland strip, came on for a dinger, and then we moved Isidore out to the left. It seemed like a positive change, although I think you don't know what goes on behind the scenes in terms of fitness, but you could argue maybe Talby was potentially the better option maybe to come off, but you don't know with Isidore moving out to the left and all that. But yeah, it was good to see him. What were your first thoughts on him?
A little bit clumsy, I thought. It didn't look confident and comfortable receiving the ball just yet. But like you say, I mean, the guy's probably only been in the building a handful of days. He's obviously off the back of a turbulent season at Ajax. So I was always expecting him to take a bit of time to come in and settle before being able to really show what he can do. And also I thought the time in the game that he came on, it made sense to bring another forward on at that point. And I thought, personally, I would have brought Mayenda on for Talby on the right-hand side. That was the way I was seeing it. So it took us by surprise a little bit, but I didn't dislike it. I thought I could totally see the logic. But I just think, the way that the game went from that point didn't help Robbie, because nothing to do with him coming on, but from that point, it's where Palace, I think, started to really think like, okay, we've got to turn the screw here. We're the home team. We need to try and win. We've got to make stuff happen. And so they naturally started to just, peg us back and a bit further back and a bit further back until we were, for a lot of that last 15 minutes, we were basically defending between the edge of our box and sort of the 30-yard mark, which it's going to make it difficult for a number 9 coming in trying to make an impact when you're just not getting the ball. And if he was getting the ball, he was getting the ball sort of 40 yards from his own goal with his back to the opposition's goal and just told to do something with it. So I wouldn't really read anything into his performance on the ball, but it was good for him to get a few minutes in a Sunderland shirt. It was good for the away fans to get to see him. But yeah, if I'm being hypercritical, I didn't think that all of the subs made sense to me. But also, we got the point, so I'm not exactly going to complain.
Yeah. Well, last 10 minutes, Gav, Gertruda also came on for Siddiqui, and then I just want to talk about those late stages of the game where Palace turned the screw, as Jonny just said. But I just want to talk about Xhaka's positioning as well. because as soon as we lost possession and the ball went out wide, you saw him slot in as almost a third centre-half, and then he pushed back out. And he made a couple of last-ditch tackles in the box. He put his head in right at the last minute on a couple of occasions. But his positioning, I mean, this is almost one of the reasons you buy a player like Xhaka in situations like this, that he can almost see you through.
Yeah. I'd just quickly on the end of that point Johnny made as well, he was coming up against Mark Gay, who's probably the best English centre-half at the minute. It was going to be tough. I think in a different situation, it's a different battle. I think if he starts the game, it's completely different. But by the by, on Xhaka, that's when you see the best of him in key moments in games, When we talk about that 10-minute period in the second half where we controlled the game, he was running the show. When we haven't got the ball, it's then on, the rest of the team all know their jobs. But on the pitch, he's the one orchestrating, dictating, telling people where to be, sensing danger and maybe thinking, right, I've got to drop in now. I've got to maybe forgo my responsibility as a midfielder and help out the defence. So, I think Granit Xhaka is just we shouldn't be surprised by any of these things because he's a world-class footballer. He's played at the top level his whole career. That's what you get when you sign a player like that, So nothing really surprises us with him. In terms of the change, Gertruda was an interesting change, wasn't it? Because you've got Dan Neil sat there on the bench, but I totally understood it because later in the game, it became a war of attrition. It became physical. It became balls into the box, bodies in the way. In them situations, you want a defensive player in there. And Reggie Slabris in the embargo press conference before the game, he said when he was asked about Gertruda where his best position is, he said, well, we see him as a central defender. We know he can play in midfield. We know he can play right back. But he straight away, very bluntly said, we see him as a centre-half. So that's going to be interesting going forward. But at that stage in the game, I think we'd kind of accepted we're probably going to have to dig in here. They're going to come flying at us. If we do get a chance, we've got pace up front. We've got players on the pitch who can make the most of opportunities. But first and foremost, let's get proper physicality into that area of the pitch where we're going to need it. And you look at Gertruda, he's a unit and he's a big boy. That's probably why we've gone out and signed so many physical players, because unfortunately, in the Championship, Dan Neil struggled in that regard. He would occasionally drop into the defence and help out there when we needed him to, but he's not big. He's quite wiry. He's not like 6'1", 6'2". He's probably 5'11" at best, Dan Neil. So in that moment in the game, we needed that type of player on the pitch, I think, in Gertruda. So, yeah, I mean, I heard what you're saying, Johnny, about the subs and stuff, but I'm not too sure I would have took Talby off, mainly because I think that move of the winger in the second half necessitated us having right-footed players on that side of the pitch, because he found it difficult to kind of come inside. With the right-footed players there, he couldn't get down the outside either. I think that's probably why Talby stayed on the pitch. Yeah. But I think had we been getting beat, Mayenda would have came on. I think we were very conservative in a lot of the decision making from the manager, and I can't argue with it because we got the clean sheet and point.
Yeah, well, this being a quick match reaction after the game,
Yeah.
we'll park that for the Sunday one. But Johnny, very quickly, because we'll start rounding up. I mean, I'm struggling to look past Roefs or Mukiele for man of the match, but who would you give man of the match to, and can you kind of sum up our point today?
Oh, Roefs by an absolute mile. He was just phenomenal today. It was such a breath of fresh air to see such a complete goalkeeping performance, because no disrespect to Patterson, but partly just due to the levels we've been playing at for the past 8 seasons, we've not seen a goalkeeper do what Roefs did today. We just haven't. We haven't had the quality in the squad to be able to see it, because we've been below the top level, and I thought Roefs he had it all. He was fantastic. And the composure that lad's got at 22 years old, he's going to be scary when he's 27. And summing up the point, first and foremost, brilliant result. If you'd offered me a 0-0 before the game, I'd have ripped your hand, your arm, your shoulder. I'd have taken the lot. I'd have had it all. So yeah, I think brilliant result for Sunderland. Defensively, absolutely superb yet again. Obviously we had to rely on the keeper a bit, but defensively solid, really well organised and well drilled. In a lot of ways, a pretty sort of archetypal Reggie Celebrese performance, and I mean that in a good way. And if we can take that as a blueprint for going away from home for the rest of the season, I think we're going to pick up points in games that a lot of teams at sort of our level would struggle in. So yeah, for me, really, really positive. And if we can take that forward, I think, we're on for a really, really good season.
Yeah. Same for you, Gav?
Yes, although, Mukiele does deserve it. They all do, actually. Everybody was brilliant in their own regard. It was a proper team performance, but when you think of games being decided on moments, Roefs made 3-4 proper quality saves. That one where he got down low when he didn't know which way the lad was going to strike, to me, that completely vindicates the decision to go and sign a goalkeeper and not go with Anthony Patterson, because Roefs is that good. You know what I mean? He does things that top level goalkeepers do, and that's the reason we've signed him. So yeah, it gets my man the match. And just to piggyback on what Jonny said about the performance as a whole, I can't argue any of that. I think it was about as good a result as I could have asked for. Obviously, we want to win every game, so there's a tiny, teeny little bit of us which is disappointing we didn't win, but it's only tiny, teeny. It's not much, and I'm not going to stew on it. I'm buzzing to be coming away with it, not just a point, but I think a clean sheet's just that is the cherry on the top of the cake. Yeah, we didn't score, but we also went away from home at one of the toughest grounds in the league, and we kept a clean sheet. And I can guarantee you at the end of the season, there'll not be many teams will go to Selhurst Park and do that, because they're a good side. So let's just, keep the positive ambition going, the positive mood going. I think everybody can feel it in the water. We're heading good. I just think you look at us now, and not to get too carried away, but there's not been a single sign yet so far that this is a team that's going to really struggle. We will struggle at times in the season, but when I say really struggle, I mean the way some of the other teams have come up. We look like we're going to be competitive, and I think we needed a performance like this today after losing to Burnley, because a lot of people took that to heart. This was one way you can come away, and doesn't feel quite as good as a win, but it's not far off. So I'm buzzing with it.
Well, that's it. Great performance, a point on the board. We've opened our account away from home. We are still joint 5th in the Premier League after 4 games. So absolute happy
Still
day.
Above the Mags as well.
That's it. Still level with bloody David Moyes lot. But anyway, that's a point. But anyway, that's why I keep saying joint 5th in the Premier League. But that just leaves me to say, Jonny, thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris.
And Gav, always a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, cheers, chaps.
And thanks again for everyone for listening. Of course, we'll have tons and tons of reaction to Sunderland's 0-0 draw away at Crystal Palace on the Roker Report website. And of course, we're going to be bashing out the podcasts on Howay the podcast on a daily basis and reacting to this all week, probably. Of course, yeah, they're chuckling away there like little school kids.
You don't be telling the listeners about what you do in your spare time, Chris.
We'll leave it right.
It wasn't that good.
Well, I don't know. Well, we can argue on that tomorrow. But anyway, from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.